In 2024, Miramax officially commented on the Halloween TV series, stating that it would be based around characters that we had met in the original movie and that the shape himself or itself would be returning. It is 2025 and we've been met with a whole lot of radio silence. But last week we had the luxury of being able to come across some information on the treatments, not treatment, treatments they were working on. The question is, who's in, who's out? Now the intro and our host, Johnny.
We all wear masks, but tonight, everyone wears the mask of fear. I'm your host, Johnny, and it is truly a pleasure to be here with you guys on this fine Tuesday evening, or whenever you happen to be listening to us, if you're not listening to us live. Joining me tonight, as always, my wonderful colleagues and co-hosts. Randy, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad. In one of those weeks, and it's only Tuesday, so this is like that one escape I get every week when Monday seems to Monday a little too much and tries to beat over to Tuesday. So, but other than that, yeah, I'm ready to go.
Sean, how you doing this fine evening?
I'm sick of being sick. Fuck sickness. There should be no sickness on planet Earth. We should all just be healthy all the time. I apologize for my voice this evening, and I apologize for some of the stuff we're going to talk about, because it might ruffle a few feathers. But I'm thrilled, man. I'm excited to be here, and I think we got a banger show in our second episode here, The Mask of Fear.
I concur with the do away with all sicknesses part. That's all right, let's get down to business. As we established last week, we're going to open each segment with a multiple choice question. This one is sort of your multiple choice for the entire show. So let's hit him with that first multiple choice. The question is, do you think the Halloween series will be a period piece or something set in modern times? Yes, a period piece is the way to go. No, leave it in modern times, or it doesn't matter. That's A, period piece is the way to go. B, no, leave it in modern times. And C, it doesn't matter. Leave your comment down below, and of course, while you're down there, hit the like button, thumbs up, help us out with the algorithm, drop us a comment, and if you haven't already, click the subscribe button and set notifications to all so you can see this show as well as all the other content sprinkled throughout the fine week. There's been 3 other videos uploaded since our last episode a week ago. If you haven't checked them out, check them out. All right, guys, before we get down to the business at hand of the entire proper show, let's throw out a thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. Big thanks to Ryan at Colleague Nation, where you can get all of your NASCAR needs available right here on YouTube. And of course, our boy Jason at Backtrack Cinema. If you want to review retro horror films, he's your guy. Head over there to Backtrack Cinema. And of course, you got Jesse's Storytime Spectacular. He talks about all things pop culture that interest him. So if you want to head over, check that out. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you guys for sponsoring us here at the Mask of Fear. And if you're not one of those main tier sponsors, you can also still be part of our Patreon, and you'll see your name featured here on this list over at patreon.com/the Mask of Fear, where we have 4 tiers available.
We'll get to that momentarily.
Well, we're there.
Oh, are we? This is what happens when I get out my notes on screen. All right, so revamped Patreon program. One of the big things is tonight's main topic. Obviously, that's probably a lot of people are waiting for us to get to is the Halloween series, and it's in our horror segment, which is always our lead-off segment, but it is our final topic in the horror segment. Probably the one that will last the longest too. But we touched on some information in a video that's up on the channel now. It came out yesterday. Really appreciate everybody checking that out. We're going to touch on another part to that tonight, which I wish it was different circumstances, but it's not. And then the third and final part to that will be available over on our Patreon on the Curse of Thorn show. Tipping the hand a little bit here. Haddonfield series? ? That will be episode 1 of the Curse of Thorn on Patreon, which has its own tier. Go to patreon.com/the Mask of Fear to sign up today. Matt and I will be doing that show. We may have a special guest, depends on availability. And then our other Halloween show that we'll be doing monthly over there is the Legacy of Halloween, and we're going to take a look back at the Halloween Kills story, not the movie, but rather everything that was going on during the making of, and how we acquired said information before a lot of other places did. So you'll want to tune into that video. As far as the tiers go, since Johnny's on top of his game and I'm not, you can join our Patreon today for as little as $4. The Squared Circle Rebellion's the first tier. You get your... it's basically the intro tier. Name at the end of the video and select exclusive videos. Star Wars and wrestling material will be in that tier. Beyond the Wall is a special show that Zach and I will be doing monthly, focused more on Westeros stuff, but we do touch on other pop culture stuff. I just mentioned the Curse of Thorn, 1 to 2 shows monthly. The Legacy of Halloween at the $13 tier, and then the sponsorship tier is at the very bottom, the VIP tier. So if you want to support the channel on that level, please feel free to do so, or you can send a super chat in during this show to catch up on everything we got going on and support the channel on that level. And if you want to do it for free, like, comment, subscribe. They all help.
You've heard the man. If you send in a super chat, we guarantee you we will talk about it, regardless of the topic. Yeah, we may not get to it immediately. We might wait till someone finishes talking. We're not going to cut somebody off in the middle of a thought, but once they finish that thought, we'll get to your super chat. Yeah, if you comment in the chat, we will do our best to stay on top of it, but as the show gets flowing, things happen. We can't always be 100% on top of it 100% of the time, so if you want to be guaranteed that we're going to comment on your comment, send it as a super chat. Otherwise, it just isn't going to happen.
Hey, Dustin, really quickly here. I replied to your comment on the video we put out yesterday about Lori not being in those early treatments for the Halloween series. There's a couple of personal questions in there. When you can, check it out. And yeah.
He did ask that. I'm sure other people asked that the higher tiers include content from lower tiers. Yes?
100%. Yes. We're not scamming anyone here. So like if you were at the VIP sponsorship tier, your name would go at the beginning of the video, much like Colleague Nation, Jesse Storytime Spectacular, and Backtrack Cinema. But you would also get everything from the 13, 6, 5, and 4. If you're at the 13, then you get the 6, 5, and 4 with it. If you're at the 6, you get the 5 and 4, and so on.
So there you go. That answers that, obviously, but some places that's not accurate, so it's a question worth asking, that's for sure. All right, guys, let's get down into the first segment of the evening, where we will put on our Halloween masks, holiday, not series, and get spooky, because it's time for the Mask of Fear horror segment. And as always, multiple choice question to kick off this segment. This first question in the horror section is, do you think Blumhouse purchasing the Saw rights is 1, a good move, 2, a bad move, or 3, you don't really care. So there it is. Was Blumhouse correct buying these Saw rights? Is it a good move, a bad move, or you just don't care? Comment down below, and if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and turn notifications to all so you can see this and every other video pop up in your, however you get your YouTube notifications. All right, guys, let's get to the first segment. Of course, as you can see on the screen, Discussing Film put out a tweet at the end of last week about a bidding war that has begun for the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We know of at least 5 studios involved. There could be more there, that we just don't know about, but these are the 5 that we do know about. We know that Monkey Paw, which is Jordan Peele, Taylor Sheridan with Paramount, Osgood Perkins with Neon, Glenn Powell and A24 and Netflix are all bidding on the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. Now, knowing that those are currently the 5 players in this process, how are you feeling about that? Do you feel good about it, bad about it? Do you have questions, concerns, thoughts? Randy, we'll start with you.
Considering I haven't seen all the movies, but the fact that we actually have decent studios vying for the rights, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good. It's one of the big classics that it seems like for more often than not, it doesn't get proper treatment sometimes. And I feel like if we can get at least one of them to just kind of really care about the product and the story and the character and really put some heart into it, I think you have a really good chance of reviving such a classic horror villain as Leatherface. So I think I can't wait to see what happens here with this.
Sean?
Look, first off, I've seen a lot of nonsense posts about not Netflix again. The Netflix movie was terrible. That was what an albatross, and it was shit. But if you do your fact checking, you know that it was not Netflix that made that movie. Netflix acquired that movie, which was already in abysmal shape, did what they could to save it, and put it out on their product. I think Netflix deserves a shot at doing it properly. But would they be my first choice? Not necessarily, but I'll take any of the 4 that I have listed on this graphic over Neon. Look, Taylor Sheridan has his hands in so much. If you've watched Yellowstone or any of its spinoffs or
Forthcoming spinoffs,
the Stallone show that I can't remember the name of,
Tulsa King.
That's it. He does good work. One might argue he can't, get a good ending to save his life, except for maybe 1888 or whatever it was, 1883, 1888. I can't remember the title. The Tim McGraw one. That one, in my opinion, is the only good ending in the Yellowstone franchise. Obviously, there's some other circumstances that forced his hand in some of those other things. Jordan Peele, I know there's people going to roll their eyes and be like, oh, he's going to go woke, etc. Look, whether you like what Jordan Peele does or not, he makes high quality films with good writing. And I do think that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in need of a little bit of elevated horror, if you will. And then my man crush, sorry, Jade, if you're watching, Glenn Powell. I will jump on a plane right now. Save me a spot. Love me some Glenn Powell. He doesn't only want to help produce it, he wants to star in it. And the one, and I'd be curious to hear what the chat thinks of this. The reason I find him intriguing is the studio who's bidding on this with him is A24. Well, what else does A24 own the rights to? A series that we're about to talk about in 2 segments, Crystal Lake. And I'm not saying you necessarily get your Jason versus Leatherface. I don't know if I'd want a story like that. But to have both exist in the same universe, to have them referenced, to have deeper level of storytelling, maybe have a protagonist that appears in both, I think there's a level of interest there that really intrigues me. And Glenn Powell people. Give me Glenn Powell versus Leatherface. Now, I don't want Glenn Powell as Leatherface. I don't know if that works for me, but give me Glenn Powell in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's where I want. But realistically, any of these four is a good fit. With our luck, it'll be Neon or someone else that gets it. But they certainly have four really good creators who might end up landing this franchise, and that excites me. I'm also, in the minority of saying the Michael Bay movie is my favorite. Better than the original, better than 2. I love that Michael Bay movie. I think it was 2003 it came out.
I believe so.
So yeah, my question to you two is, who do you want? If you're a betting man, not who you think, but who would you like to end up with the rights to see TCM?
Well, let me get my thoughts out of the way first before we get to that. But I think that, like you said, there's 4 qualified candidates here, and then I cannot wrap my head around the big dorky nerd from Legally Blonde as a horror movie guy. It just doesn't. I can't do it. I just that's what he is to me. I googled his name because I didn't actually know it, and I looked up Osgood Perkins, the guy associated with the Neon. But as soon as I saw the picture, I was like, "That's the nerd from Legally Blonde." What? Like it just I can't do that one. Any of the rest though, I'm behind. Like, I may not be necessarily a fan of Jordan Peele's horror films, but that's just a stylistic thing. But like Sean said, it's high quality. Like I can't argue the quality of content. Just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not great work. Taylor Sheridan, like you said, yeah, he's one of the busiest guys in Hollywood. Who would have ever thought that the deputy sheriff from Charming would go on to be one of the greatest storytellers out there? And I'd argue, yeah, his ending for Yellowstone kind of sucked, but his hand was forced in such a degree that I don't really hold him responsible for that so much as the storytelling leading up to it was all phenomenal, immaculate. And Glenn Powell, if you want to put a touch of
don't you dare say anything bad about Glenn Powell.
I don't have anything bad to say about
right
Glenn
now.
Powell.
I will go on strike. Episode 2.
I don't have anything bad to say about Glenn Powell. I think he has a lot of things going for him right now. He is one of the hot names in Hollywood, which is a huge plus, and he has skill. Which is something that I'd be excited to see. From a storytelling perspective, I don't know. I don't think he's had really a kick at the can from that side of the film yet that I can think of. So I don't know. Maybe he has those skills, maybe he doesn't. But just getting him on screen, I think, is a huge boon to the possibilities of this franchise. And Netflix, again, just because it's the studio and they don't have names attached, doesn't mean they aren't going to get someone great to go out there and do it. That's the important thing. It's all about who ends up, who's producing it, who's directing it, who's writing it, who's starring it. Those are all questions that we don't have answers to, which is really the only project that has those question marks. We at least have some idea of, who would at least be, starring or running the helm of the other projects. So it has the most question marks, but Netflix has been able to draw some great filmmakers. Not all of the products are great, but it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see all this. Back to your question that you asked, who do I want to get it? Oh man, it's hard to go against Glenn Powell and A24. They're the hot hand in horror. Glenn is hot in Hollywood. It just sort of has everything necessary to make this something better than it was and reinvigorate. I think in part this might help reinvigorate all of the major horror franchises, because when one succeeds, then people will see the success and piggyback on it. And I think this does nothing but help out the Friday the 13th and specifically the Nightmare on Elm Streets of the world. I think is one that could be hugely benefited by TCM going to a new studio and being a success.
Randy, who you picking?
So this is definitely a really difficult choice, just because there is a lot of talent here that could potentially put out a really solid movie. Obviously, it feels like Netflix is trying to redeem themselves for purchasing the one movie and putting it out on their own, and they clearly feel like they've got something more to offer. But my pick is gonna be Jordan Peele, just because I want to see, like you said, high class horror. So I'm really curious to see what type of treatment he would put on this, and how he would actually write the character, write the other characters as well. I would hope they were not as, just dumb flailing teens as we've seen in a lot of slasher movies in the past. And we know that wouldn't be the case, but I think it would just be real interesting to give him a crack at a legend and see if he can bring it back to life.
I mean, I think I made mine clear, Glenn Powell. To just back up what someone else said in the chat about Mike not liking Michael Bay but loving his Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. I'm not a Michael Bay guy at all, but that film, chef's kiss.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again. All right, let's move on to our next topic. And if you want to hear more intricate details on this, check out the video we posted on Friday?
I don't know. Sometime
Thursday? Sometime between last week's episode and tonight's episode. I believe it's 5 days ago, so that'd be Thursday, I think, depending on how the timer works. But, Thursday or Friday of last week, if you want more details on that, head over, check out that video. Saw has found a new home. And not just a new home, but a return to the mantle of the man who created, one of the men who created this franchise in James Wan. Blumhouse has acquired the rights to the Twisted Pictures portion of the Saw franchise. So it's not a full 100% takeover, but they are getting it from Mark Berg and Oren Coules, who was the other original creator of the Saw franchise, along with James Wan, and taken their 50% of it and are bringing it in-house. We know James Wan. He was one of the creators. He directed the first film. So
yeah. Funny story about that. Really quickly, I'll be 30 seconds or less.
Mm-hmm.
I was talking with someone who used to come on the channel quite a bit, and they were like, "I don't know why everybody's making a big deal about James Wan, doing a Saw movie. Like, what the hell does he have to do with it?" It's like, he literally directed the first film. Do some research, people.
Co-creator. I even think he co-wrote. Him and Oren were the team on the first film. They were the two guys behind it. So, it's going from home to home, I guess you could say, because Oren Coules was always involved in it through Twisted Pictures, but James Wan wasn't. What do you think about this? Blumhouse picking up another horror franchise that's sort of, I don't want to say down on its luck, but not at the heights it once was, where it was once sort of a king of the horror franchise, which, for a period there for a while, Saw was that. It hit on something that hadn't really been done in horror and brought it down to earth and did something special with it. What do you think? Are you excited? Are you happy? Are you concerned? Do you just generally not care? What's your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and all of this on this, Randy?
I don't know about emotions on this, but I'll say this. I'll get it out of the way. I think I've only seen maybe a couple of the movies. I actually enjoyed the first one the most out of all the ones out there. Even if I've caught like a few minutes of each of them, you can even ask Matt. I fell asleep during the second one. But honestly, I'm kind of at a sit and wait and see, because this franchise isn't exactly really as important to me as others. So I would rather just kind of wait and see what direction they decide to go, the type of story, things like that, because it felt like at one point it was just, okay, let's see how we can outdo the kills from the previous film. And to me, that's just not, good. To me, that's not good storytelling. It's more like we're just doing the shock of it all just to try to see if you can get people to be squeamish. And obviously they tried to reel it in a little bit, but ultimately it's none of them are really going to catch up to what the first one really was as a overall story and horror film. But, there's a chance Blumhouse could revive it and do well with it. I'm just not as interested as most people are.
Sean?
Well, if you want to hear my thoughts on it, go watch the other video. Look, I'll say this: James Wan's had some hits and misses since then. He's got talent though, and it's his baby in the beginning. So if we can get back to something close to that first movie, I'd be okay with it, because that first movie is not just like an escape room. Essentially, it's more than that. And if we can get back to that, then I'm on board for it. That being said, for every Halloween or every Blumhouse Halloween trilogy there is, let's not forget that they redid The Exorcist, and it was fucking awful. I cannot believe I took the time to watch that movie one night. I wanted to rip my eyes out. Former co-host here when we were doing Haddonfield and Beyond didn't think it was all that bad. I think he's out of his mind. He's super knowledgeable in horror, super good guy to talk to about anything horror, but that movie was a fucking shit show, to quote Dave McRae. Just terrible. I fucking hated it. And let's not forget that they also did Black Christmas, which was another shit show take on it. So I hope they hit it out of the park. Obviously a lot of people like their take on Five Nights at Freddy's, but it's 50-50 for me at this point. Get James Wan in there, and I have a little more faith in it, but I don't want this to turn into a Saw movie every year for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that's fair. If there's one thing you can overdo, if there's one thing in Saw that you can do very quickly, is overdo it. And don't rely on the same traps. Be original. Be creative. Give us something fancy and original. I mean, if you want to nod back to the originals, obviously you're gonna have the bear trap. You kind of have to. It's a staple at this point. But there's lots of ways you can freshen it up. Okay, choked on some air there. That's always fun.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations, director.
Okay. Let's move on to our next topic. We have more on Crystal Lake and its filming. This comes to us from Friday13thfranchise.com. And as you can see right now, we do have some points here. The show is set in the 70s, but multiple organization references the year 1971 specifically. The full tentative shoot of the first season of Crystal Lake will take place as early as June 18th, conclude November 21st. This can change, obviously, due to factors during filming. The first week of filming, which looks to be June 18th, will take place in West Milford, New Jersey. Large number of principal and background characters filling the first couple days to make some of the settings very likely to be a camp. And here we also have a breakdown of a select group of 5 characters that are being cast the past several weeks for the first days of filming around June 18th. The first character we have is partying, kissing, and friend teens for the 1970s. 1970s summer camp kids, swimming campers, 1970s experienced lifeguards, canoeing, and archery camp counselors. So I was going to go out on a limb and guess we're at a camp for a large portion of this season. Just a hunch. I don't think I'm going out of school to suggest that, Camp Crystal Lake is a thing here. What do you guys think? Is there anything here that shocks you? Is there anything here that excites you? Or is this just sort of, more of what we expected, but getting more confirmation on things like how intricate how important the camp is going to be as part of the series? Randy?
Well, I think we're getting information that we were always expecting to get at some point, and to show that the camp itself is going to potentially be a character, which we always knew that was going to be the case in anything related to Friday the 13th, unless you're, Jason Takes Manhattan, but we won't talk about that right now. But yeah, this is kind of exciting just because it's more confirmation that things really are getting into the swing of things, and we're starting to get more information and more just knowledge of just, hey, this is getting ready to start shooting, and it's more of a confirmation that we're actually going to get a show versus what we've seen with Halloween so far. So I can't complain that more and more information is coming out.
Sean? Did you get attacked by the mute monster?
No, you caught me in the middle of taking my heart meds. All right. So, look, the news is good, in my opinion. I'm someone who's pro Fear Street. The prom queen wasn't the it was a far cry from that the first three movies. But if we go back to Fear Street 1978 and the way that campground looked in that movie, they did it fantastic. The campground has to look good. I don't care if it's set in 1971 or not. It's got to look good. Don't have it look like this fucking B movie piece of shit that's not high quality. It should feel real. It should feel lived in. It should not necessarily feel like something that's just been snatched out of an old Friday the 13th movie. I don't want that. We've seen that. If you want that, go watch those movies. Production quality is going to need to be high here, fellas. I'm excited. You know what happens when filming begins? Stuff starts leaking. And I don't mean just to us. It'll start leaking everywhere. And I'm going to probably try to stay spoiler free, but like for a lot of production stuff and, certain performers that are in it, because they've kept their lips sealed on a lot of the people that are in the series, we're going to be all over that when it comes out. So I'm really excited for this. And being they're filming now, there's no doubt that this thing comes out next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of confirms all of that. Getting started soon is a great thing. Everything we've learned in there, like I said, is sort of stuff we already assumed. It's just getting that last little bit of confirmation, especially as sort of how important the background characters are going to be, that it's going to be sort of full and not just sort of the a handful of people existing in the camp and that sort of being the thing. We get to see Crystal Lake really for the first time at its full potential as far as a camp goes, which is something we never really got in the movies. You kind of got it a bit in one when they reopened the camp, but it wasn't the same. It still wasn't as living as it could have been. So getting all of that, I think, is a great thing. And like Sean said, it's important to just look good. It has to take you there. It has to make it feel like this is a summer camp in the 1970s, which is going to be difficult from a certain perspective. Yet from another perspective, it's easier, if we're being honest, to do, because summer camps really haven't changed very much, in that period. A summer camp in 1970 really isn't all that different from a summer camp in 2020. You just have a bit more, electronic environment added into it, and electricity and stuff like that. But, other than that, it's mostly the same. Cabins are still relatively the same visually and looking, mostly because a lot of them were built before the 70s and are still the same ones in use today, because it's more expensive to rebuild than it is to just revamp and refit. But yeah, it's got to look good, it's got to feel good, and it's just got to be all of those things. And I think we're well on our way towards that. All right, guys, let's move on to the final. Before we get to the final topic of the day, let's throw out the Mask of Fear Facebook group. Head over there. Every day, new content, all of that. Today's trivia was directly related to the Halloween franchise, so we'll do that out there. We actually had a correct answer. Last week, nobody answered. I asked you which psychological horror film George A. Romero had a cameo in. That was the name. That was Silence of the Lambs. He played one of the orderlies in the Silence of the Lambs. But this week, we had a lot of answers.
Can I just say, I'm loving Trivia Tuesday, and I was very proud of you on this question.
Well, I appreciate that. Today's Trivia Tuesday question was, what was used to create the stabbing sound effect in the 1978 classic Halloween? We had a correct answer right off the rip. The very first answer was the correct one. Eugene Johnson answered almost immediately. I don't want to see the timestamp, but it was 7 hours ago. The post was 7 hours ago. So it was within that first hour of the post. He said a watermelon. A watermelon. That was the correct answer. We had a pumpkin, squash. Tess said my voice.
I saw our boy Jason put pumpkin. I was just like, oh, bro, come on.
When I saw that, my immediate reaction was,
dude, that's a surface level answer from just a super smart horror guy.
When I saw Jason had answered a pumpkin, my immediate reaction was, wait, am I wrong? Because it was just so out of the realm that Jason would get this one wrong in my mind. So, I double checked my answers and confirmed that I was in fact correct. And I just had stumped Jason, so that made me feel good. Just keep your eyes open. Trivia every Tuesday. Face Off Friday this week is, I think, a fun one. It's going to be exciting. I'll tell you right now. It's not horror, but be prepared for the Battle of the Billionaires. I'll leave you to stew on what that could possibly be.
Well, as long as it's neither of the pieces of shit from the last Battle of the Billionaires, I'm good.
No, it is neither of those. These billionaires could buy and sell those 10 times over. All right. Let's move to our final topic of the horror segment. If you watched our video on the channel yesterday, you got, like Sean said, off the open. We got details, and now we have more details. So if you don't know if you haven't watched it yet, go back, rewatch yesterday's video, or watch yesterday's video. Comment, like, subscribe, all that stuff on that one as well. But we have more details, things that we didn't get to in Monday's video, and we have more details for that stuff. Sean, I'm going to turn the table over to you.
So bear with me here. I'm going to take us on a little bit of a storytelling journey. Obviously, we covered Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends extensively at the channel. You probably know our track record was a lot more right than wrong, but that doesn't mean we didn't have some misses. We certainly did. I certainly know some frat boys that still think I live in my mom's basement, despite not living with that lady for 2 decades. They're entitled to think what they want. Wish them nothing but the best. But I like for me, and I look back at. Sorry, we haven't. Do you hear any feedback? Is it on my end here?
No, I don't hear anything.
I hear some feedback. So let me know if anyone in the chat hears some feedback right now. But the Mask of Fear sound effect was actually made from Tommy B's ass. Love me some Tommy B. He'll be around. He's still around, very much an active part behind the scenes, and will appear on screen when he can. So let me start this. We covered the Blumhouse trilogy. One of the sources that we used for theirs has really close ties with one of the companies that's doing the Halloween series, and he watched our episode last week and was very complimentary on it. And him and I got talking, and I brought up a character and some of the things that I'd heard from someone else. And he quickly said, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but this is what I heard last year. And so we're going all the way back to when Bloody Disgusting released an article, and you had Hellwig, the head of Miramax Television, commenting on the series and how they had plans for the series. Well, let's just say I left that conversation. Him and I talk once in a blue moon, but I left that conversation, I wouldn't say infuriated, but pretty upset. And I'm not going to be surprised if some of the people that are watching this live now or after the fact are going to be upset with this. And I hope that this turns out to not be true. But this guy's track record is pretty damn good. And, if there's smoke where there's fire, it's probably true. So in the video that we did yesterday, we had said in the 2 treatments specifically, there may have been more, but the 2 treatments that Miramax and Trancas were leaning heavily towards while they were making those comments last year did not include the character of Laurie Strode. Which it's like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm okay. Let's move on from Laurie. Not just Jamie Lee Curtis. Let's move on from the character of Laurie Strode. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with new characters. But we need to look at the fact that they being Miramax, specifically the head of television, Hellwig, mentioned that I'm still hearing the feedback, that he it would be basically based off the first film, and we would see characters that we haven't focused on in a long time, implying characters from the first film. And you guys might, when you think about other than Rob Zombie's movies, I think the first character everybody jumped to when you see a quote like that from a guy who's in charge of what the series is going to look like, you're looking at the guy to the left, Dr. Samuel Loomis. And it absolutely fucking kills me to say this, that at least at that time in the treatments that they were working off of, Loomis was not in it. So if those treatments are what they're going off of, Loomis was not in it. And specifically, like I mentioned in the video, one was a period piece, one was set in modern times, much like our multiple choice question we asked people to kick off this show. But according to who we spoke with, Loomis was not in the treatments Miramax and Trancas were leaning towards. One of the treatments, though, heavily hinted at him and talked about him towards the end. Now, it's important to remember they wanted this to build into a connected cinematic universe, a series into a movie. We've heard Randy say multiple times that I seen him comment today too about how it's probably more likely to do a movie into a series. I don't know if I'm at that point yet, but if you're going to build up to Loomis and maybe he appears at the very end, and or maybe he shows up in the movie or a season 2, that appears to be on the table. But as it stands, from the last information that the source we spoke to got, Sam Loomis was not in these treatments other than being mentioned. Not only do I think it's a massive missed opportunity to bring back that character, it reeks of the same bullshit Lucasfilm does with, oh, we can't recast this character, we can't recast that character, and they make it more about the performer than the character itself. There is so much talent in and outside of Hollywood. Someone is capable of playing that role. All the best to Donald Pleasance, but he's been gone for like 3 decades. It's time to move on. Obviously, Malcolm McDowell had his shot in the zombie movies, and he's more comic relief in those movies, in my opinion. But the idea that you have the head of television at Miramax come out and offer the quote he did, and if you know anything about Halloween, the natural jumping conclusion of that was going to be, oh, we're going to do something with Loomis. And again, I hope the information's wrong. I don't think it is, unfortunately. It sounds like Loomis is out, fellas. That doesn't mean I'm out. But again, for me, it's a massive missed opportunity. I can't believe we're actually sitting here today talking about this. Laurie's had her focus in her time. Not to say Loomis hadn't in the past, but it was time for a modern day adaptation of the Loomis character, and it sounds like that's off the board. And the only reason I can think of is fear of recasting. And honestly, if you don't have any balls, then you shouldn't be doing the series at all.
I mean, I think for me, yeah, it definitely was sort of an opportunity to, bring back a character that otherwise you obviously can't. You can't really, there's no logical, feasible way to plug Sam Loomis in a modern day Halloween. You can't. It's not possible. But in a period piece like this, you absolutely can, and you almost have to. Now, I think it sort of comes down to what the story ends up being, I think, is the important thing for how much Loomis needs to be involved or should be involved, in my opinion. We've speculated on some different possibilities that maybe Michael's not going to be a major part of this. That he's going to be locked up through the course of this. And I think there you can sort of get away a little better by keeping Loomis out and away from, the goings on, because you can sort of have him there but not there, if that makes sense. You hear his name mentioned and he's in the shadows, but you never actually see him or hear him or any of that until, maybe you get to a finale or, premiere or the movie or whatever, however you're going to tell this story. But I think if you're going to have a Michael that is forward and present, you need Loomis, at least in this period. You can't, it is unfathomable to me that Loomis is going to disappear when Michael gets out and is back on the prowl. Unless you can provide a compelling storytelling reason for why he's not there. Yeah, that's certainly an out that you can take, but it would have to be a compelling storytelling reason to why he's not there, and I don't know that they have that. Could they? Absolutely, they could. But I think, I don't necessarily have the trust that they will, as far as compelling reasons go. And it just, I don't know. I think that in a piece like this, you almost need him to be there. I think personally, I think, like Sean said, it's not a peace out moment, but it's you're skating on really thin ice now. Because you're going to take away all of the touchstones to success. You're not going to have those characters that we already have an emotional connection to, that you're going to have to build new characters, and you're going to have to build them up fast, because you can't quite, you obviously can't have Michael sort of front and center from a story moving perspective, because, well, he doesn't speak, and that's a very important thing. You need someone who can narratively progress the story forward that we emotionally care about. And Loomis did a lot of that heavy lifting in, both the original film and the follow-ups that he was a part of. And I don't know if they're going to be able to capture that quickly enough that I'm going to care long term. And just sitting at this, I can sort of see, and again, the bear with me with the, before the, well, you ended up loving it in the end comparison comes out. I feel like we're walking headfirst towards Andor season 1, episodes 1 and 2. You're going to spend so much time trying to introduce you to new characters that you're not going to get emotionally invested in soon enough, that I think they run the risk of people checking out quickly if you don't sink the hook right away. And that's my big fear, is that they're not going to set the hook and people are just going to swim off the line, and the series is going to not be as well received as it could be if you had a narrative anchor that can help you progress the story forward, like a Loomis or even, a Laurie.
Yeah, I'm it's disappointing to hear the fact that potentially there's no Loomis, but also, it's not completely and totally ruled out. I feel like that type of a character, what he means to the series as a whole, it's hard to just write him off and just say, oh, we're just going to do, especially if you do a period piece, right? If you do a period piece, you almost have to have him, or at least introduce him at some point. You can't just leave him off the table. Uh, could it work without him? Sure. Uh, is there, but honestly, I don't know how well. Uh, I feel like it's a real missed opportunity if you don't uh, dive into his character during this time. I mean, looks like Dustin and I are the same wavelength here with that, in the sense of I like the idea of seeing how everything's affected him and his obsession with Michael. I think that's a really good story there that's just waiting to be told, and could be very dramatic and heartbreaking even. You never know. I know it's amazing to think about drama and heart in your horror film. I know, or even your horror series. How dare I think that way? Um, Ultimately, though, we have to look at the fact that it is Halloween. There's gonna be a lot of Michael Myers, one way or another. And at this point, whatever they decide to do, let's hope that it's just done well and just at least pays homage to Loomis in some way. Because I think not mentioning him at all would be a disservice to the character. And Sean, like you, I feel like they're just being cowards for not wanting to recast him. There's so many good actors out there who probably could bring that kind of gravitas or even insanity to the role, that all they need is a chance. And as long as you have a good script and a good director, you should be able to pull that out of them, no problem. But since it's still early in the goings, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. I wish we were reporting on something else. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but considering where it's coming from, I would say there's some smoke where the fire is. Your one hope you might have, though, is again, this was at the time of Miramax comments last year, which is now something like 15 months ago. So maybe things have changed. We're actually going to talk directly about those comments next week on next week's show, and on the Patreon show that Matt and I are doing. We're going to get into part 3 of this report. Haddonfield the series ? Will be episode 1, available on the Curse of Thorn tier over on Patreon. I believe Matt and I are recording that next week, so I would say that episode would be available. Just looking at the date. Hopefully by Friday the 20th, that episode will be available.
All right, guys. That is going to do it for this week's horror segment. Yeah, keep your eyes open for all of that. If you missed some of it, watch back, or who knows, maybe some of it might get put up on its own. Just have to wait and see. All right, guys, it is time now for the next segment. We have taken off our Halloween masks, and it's now time for us to put on some other mask, because it's time for the video game segment. Couldn't really think of an appropriate gaming mask metaphor there. All right, let's get right into it. As always, multiple choice question to kick off the segment. All right, guys, your multiple choice question for the gaming segment is: will you be playing the re-released versions of either Gears of War or Halo? Answer 1, yes. 2, no. Or 3, maybe. The question is, will you be playing the re-released versions of either Gears of War or Halo? Yes, no, or maybe.
Hard
All right,
yes for me, obviously.
Oh yeah, hard yes on me too.
Right. And I know my Jensen's going to drag me into Halo. I'm not going to be able to say no to that. So
just stick to 2. You'll be fine. We used to play that.
one's
all right.
good. One's good.
One's not bad, but it's not 2. It's like Battlefront. Battlefront. There we go. Brain did the tango. That often does. I think. Am I thinking of Battlefront or Battlefield? Which one is it? They both are Battle Fs. But, yeah, I'm talking Star Wars, so it's Battlefront. The original Battlefront 2, not the new one. Because, well, I guess 2 is better in both instances, isn't it? At the end of the day, so it really doesn't matter. All right, guys. Your first segment last week, we had a whole bunch of new gaming announcements and news come to us by way of panels and conventions and things of that nature. So first up on the docket, we were graced with a trailer for Resident Evil 9. Now, obviously, we can't play the trailer. If you want to see it, Google it. Use the YouTube search bar up ahead if you haven't seen it yet. You'll find it somewhere posted by someone. Check it out and come back if you want to. Otherwise, stick around. Keep watching. What do you guys think of it? Resident Evil 9, you see some returning characters, some new characters related to older characters, and a very familiar setting. Initial thoughts on what we saw for Resident Evil 9. Randy?
First off, I'd like to say yes, Dustin. Halo Reach was definitely one of those. It was probably one of the best Halos they had. As for what I saw in the RE9 trailer, I was pretty excited. It looked absolutely beautiful. I think it's cool that we're actually going to go back to that setting. It's crazy to think about how long ago we got to watch the nuke drop. But obviously, there's the hints that Leon's coming back, which it's kind of hard to have Resident Evil without him, considering he's one of the best characters in the entire series. But to go back and to have something a little bit more different, having mythological creatures and things like that, I think it's an interesting take. But granted, what we saw with 8, they kind of went in that direction as well. So I'm really excited just for that fact alone, that they're trying new things and they're trying to give us a little bit more than what we got, obviously in previous installments, since all they've been doing is remakes lately. But it's not a bad thing because the RE4 remake was great. So 3, a little bit left to be desired, but
Sean?
Look, my cousin is fucking bananas over Resident Evil. You can check out his channel, Vampire Thorn. He replays all those games all the time over there. Um, I I like the earlier Resident Evil stuff. Like, you can sell me on 1, 2, 3. I'm not as high on 4 as a lot of people. And I enjoyed 5's multiplayer aspect. But you give me post nuke Raccoon City. I mean, that's a character in its own as long as we're there for longer than 5 minutes. I'm down. And as Dustin said, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, but Leon and Claire are rumored to return. If Leon's in it, then I'm down. It looks beautiful. I've always had a problem with how short these games are. Games are expensive. Like, you're up here in Canada, you're talking $100 a pop. Your game better be longer than 3 fucking hours, is all I have to say. And I'm not sure it will be. So, I'm always down for Resident Evil to some extent. I don't know if I'm down for $100 game. Might be waiting until it goes on sale. But I'm also a Leon fanboy, so if he's back, then maybe they got me. We'll have to wait and see. It looks great, though. It's a good start.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, it was huge in a Resident Evil back in the day, and by back in the day, I mean PlayStation and PlayStation 2 era Resident Evil. 1 through 4, I loved all of them. 5 was okay. Wasn't quite as big a fan of the setting and some of the weirdness, what with the crocodiles and things like that. Wasn't as big a fan of those. But since then, I haven't really played any of the Resident Evil since then, to be honest. So this one doesn't really do much for me. I'm not a huge RE fan. It's nice to see the characters and the setting again. Because that's always fun. It's that kick of nostalgia that you like. But like Sean said, I don't think I can in any way justify the cost this game is going to entail, especially if it gets the bump up in the especially in the bump in price that's forthcoming for games. If this ends up being an $80+ game in the States, then up here north of the border, we're looking at, 110 plus for this game. So that is not something I want. If I'm going to spend that much on a game, it needs to be something I'm going to get, a huge boost out of. For me in a game, and this is just, personal strategy, I like to sort of ascribe to a $1 per hour as sort of my thing. If I can get at least that, and this is for story games specifically, close to $1 per hour, then I can justify the cost, because you're getting the time, you're getting the playtime out of it. That's the important thing. But if you're at like a 6-hour game, there's no way I'm paying full price for you. There's no way. That's never going to happen. And Resident Evil games have always been sort of shorter. They pack a lot into that shortness. So it's not like a quality standpoint they're lost, but they do lose in length. And I don't know whether or not they've adjusted over the more recent outings, but it just, I don't know. It's to me, it's not that exciting. All right, guys, like we said off the top, if you're going to be active in the chat, we appreciate you guys, every one of you guys in the chat. But if you want to be guaranteed that whatever you say is going to get noticed or be mentioned, send it as a super chat. Otherwise, we might get to it if you're on the topic we're talking about, you're more likely to be caught and read. But if you're going backwards in the show, if you're commenting on something from the past, if you're watching behind or a further back version, you are less likely to get noticed in the chat unless it is sent as a super chat, which, like I said, we will always acknowledge super chats, no matter how big or how small. And of course, if you haven't already, down below, like, subscribe, thumbs up, set notifications, all that other fun stuff to help us improve both ourselves and how frequently you see us. All right, next gaming topic. Of course, we finally got a look at a new Bond game. We saw some of First Light. Now, obviously, if you've been around long enough, you know that the James Bond games were a staple of our youth. GoldenEye on the N64 is still to this day, in my opinion, the greatest first-person shooter in history. From my opinion,
I still play it. Guilty
as
as
you
charged.
should. It's a great game. It's an amazing game. It's a phenomenal game. Unless your opponent picks Oddjob, you're a horrible person if you do that.
That sounds like what you do, if I recall correctly, sir.
Yeah, but when I'm the one picking him, it's not a horrible decision. It's a great decision. It's the smartest decision you can possibly make. It's only when somebody else picks him that you're awful, horrible, terrible person. Otherwise, it's just a strategic advantage. All right. And in later games, they made up for it. He wasn't short in the later games. He was still tall, but he did have the bonus hat, which was always nice to try and chuck your hat at people. That was always fun. All right, guys. First Light. What did you think? What did you see? Were you excited for this? Are you cautiously optimistic? Or are you just like, man, it's just another first-person shooter in the modern era where there are far too many first-person shooters? Randy?
Well, I mean, any first-person shooter, as long as it's done well, it's it can still stand out. And I feel like this has potential to stand out just because the IP, but also just as long as it looks beautiful. I'm really excited just to give it a shot when it finally drops. But like with this, like I said, as long as it's done well, as long as they take the time to really polish this thing and give us just an overall great experience, a great story, because a lot of first-person games can, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them have good stories, and Bond almost writes itself. But that's what we need. We need them to give us a really solid story. And I think it's going to do just fine. It's going to stand out, and we'll have a really good, fun, current gen Bond game on our hands here.
Sean?
This fucking game's got me, sons of bitches. Look, when's the fucking last Bond game we had? Like
original?
Even based off a movie, was the last one like Quantum of Solace?
I don't think they did a game for that.
Yeah, they did. I had it. I owned it.
Okay, they didn't do a good game for that.
No, they didn't. I mean, one might argue the last good game was Nightfire that you and I used to play with my brother.
I think Double Agent was after that. And they did the From Russia with Love game after that, and that was pretty good.
It's got me. I do wish that, and it doesn't seem like it's in the cards unless it's a surprise later. Clearly, we're going to get this awesome story type game. It looks fantastic. I didn't know when we were going to get young Tom Cruise as James Bond, but apparently it's happening. Go look at the pictures go watch the trailer. It looks like Tom Cruise. It's like Mission Impossible meets James Bond. And apparently Mads Mikkelsen is in the game as the same character he played in Casino Royale. Love that movie, by the way. But
is he, or are you talking about the Hitman level?
I think he's in this game, but we'll double check that and get back to you guys next week.
I saw there was a Hitman bonus level that included the Mikkelsen character from Casino
Maybe
Royale.
That could be it.
The last James Bond game was in 2012, 007 Legends.
And I think that was what was that for, like the Wii or something? A soft take, a soft retelling of GoldenEye. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But that was the last game for James Bond.
Yeah, so it's been 13 years, 14 years by the time we get it. Way too long for this franchise that used to do quite well, to be frank, pardon me. But I wish there was like a modest multiplayer. Like, go back to even Nightfire, Johnny, what you and I used to do. Like, I'm not talking some big fucking 60 or 120 or 200 person online game. I'm talking like throw 8 people on a map, like Gears of War, and go have some fun. Like, that wouldn't have taken all that much for resources. It's a Hitman level, according to Dustin. But it doesn't sound like that's in the cards, and that's a little disappointing because like that to me seems like an easy fix to appeal to the multiplayer audience, but still having the story be the main part of the game. You know, would have been fun. I'm gonna get it. I'm really looking forward to it, and it might be one that I even. Do we know if this is for PlayStation?
Yeah.
Is it okay? So I might even stream that on this channel. So
I am cautiously optimistic for this. I love the Hitman series. I always have. You know, I've been a big fan of that going all the way back to the beginning. So if they can bring sort of that Hitman-esque style to James Bond, I think would work really greatly. Having that sort of level style of play that they've always had, I think will be beneficial for a Bond game. The question is going to come down to the story, how it works as an original story, and this is the first time since 2002. This is the first time since Agent Under Fire where we have a James Bond that isn't of likeness to one of the actors portraying Bond on screen. So that's going to be interesting. I'm excited for this. The Bond games, they were a huge part of the games we played. Like you said, GoldenEye was huge. I love The World Is Not Enough, which was basically just GoldenEye with a reskin. They were both great games. Nightfire.
wait, hang on. You liked The World Is Not Enough?
It was GoldenEye with a reskin.
Oh, dude, bro, what are you doing to me, man?
It was GoldenEye with a reskin in the World Is Not Enough story.
You know what that game was?
GoldenEye with a reskin?
That game was like, let me see. You kick it off with The Force Awakens and you follow it up with The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. That's what that game felt like for me. It did not feel at all like GoldenEye with a reskin to me. I thought it was fucking terrible.
Okay.
That was the follow-up, right? It was like a blue N64 cartridge?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was awful. What was the PS1 game? Was that Tomorrow Never Dies?
Yes.
Yeah, that one was decent.
No, that one was terrible.
Oh, for the love of God, dude. Come on. You know what? We need a Tommy B should just go fuck himself clip. I'm gonna get him to record that, and we're gonna have him on the show.
But no, I mean, I'm excited for this. I'm cautiously optimistic. Bond is always a franchise that, is either great or terrible in the gaming environment. And, there isn't really any that you're just like, well, they exist. They're they're playable, they're fun, they're enjoyable, but they're not, they're not great, but they're not bad either. So, hopefully we can get back into the great category. I'm excited for it. It's like I said, IO Interactive is a studio with very few misses. In my opinion,
what have they done that we might know?
Well, the Hitman franchise, entirely them. They did the Kane and Lynch series, which I enjoyed. Freedom Fighters was another one of their games that I enjoyed, but mostly they're just they're the Hitman studio. That's really mostly what they do.
Good place to start.
It's just an excellent place to start. So I'm excited for that personally. So yeah, that's it for gaming this week. We'll have more over the next few weeks for other things that have been are announced and been announced and get discussed and all of that. So let us move forward, and we'll take off whatever gaming mask you put on, and we will go back to wearing Darth Vader's mask as we enter the Star Wars segment here on the Mask of Fear. And of course, we'll kick that off with this week's Star Wars multiple choice question, which is, which upcoming Star Wars project are you most excited for? Answer A, Mandalorian and Grogu. B, Season 2 of Ahsoka. Or C, Star Wars Starfighter. Comment down below your answer to that. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and set notifications to all so that we will always appear however you receive your YouTube notifications. All right, guys, let's get into the first big news topic of the week, which comes to us by way of Variety. And Starfighter has cast its villain, female lead. Mia Goth is set to join Star Wars Starfighter, also starring Ryan Gosling. Details of her role are currently being kept under wraps. We know the film is still eyeing a fall production. Disney has, of course, set a theatrical release date, which is currently scheduled for May 28th, 2027. Kathleen Kennedy and Filoni unveiled Starfighter most recently at Celebration in Tokyo just a few short months ago. It's, of course, a standalone, which is set to be roughly 5 years after the events of Episode 9. So, yeah, we know, obviously, Sean Levy, Ryan Gosling, now Mia Goth. Jonathan Tropper is writing the film. He, of course, worked with Levy on the Adam Project, and This Is Where I Leave You. He's a creator of the Apple TV Plus series Your Friends and Neighbors. Guys, how are you feeling about this Mia Goth cast opposite Ryan Gosling to play the villain, the female lead? We're not 100% certain yet. There is speculation out there, but what do you guys think? Is this something you felt the film needed? Are you excited about this possibility? How are you feeling? Here we are, just a few days after this news came out at the tail end of last week. So how are you feeling about Mia Goth being cast in this film? Randy, we'll start with you.
Considering all I've really ever known her for was the X series of movies, that trilogy, but I thought she did really well in those too. So if she is truly going to be the main villain, I think it's gonna that experience alone will definitely help her character, and from just a villain standpoint, I think it's a good casting. I mean, and I don't believe that Levy's going to sit there and not try to bring in as much talent as he can for this film. I'm sure that he's doing everything he can to get some of the top tier people to come in and really add to this film. And I think this is a good cast. I think good casting. I feel like this is a really good opportunity for her to stretch her legs, to go beyond horror, which is, I mean, even sci-fi for the most part, it's really not that much of a stretch. But yeah, I'm happy with it. I can't wait to see what more information comes out about it and see what type of character she will be overall.
Sean?
Look, whenever you can add talent to a film or series, I'm up for it. They're the only movies I know her from as well, Randy, and I thought she was fantastic in them. If you can add talent, then you do it. And it sounds like that's exactly what they're doing. So I'm excited. I don't know if she'll be the lead female villain, or lead villain rather, but it certainly sounds like that's where it's going. But I'm open to it, stock this movie up with talent.
I can honestly say I'm not familiar with her at all. I haven't seen anything that she's been in. Now, obviously, that will change here in the near future, as she is in the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein, which I am excited to see eventually, as she's also in the upcoming Christopher Nolan movie, The Odyssey. So, I mean, that's two franchises that you can't exactly look down on. If you're casting a Christopher Nolan movie, it's not just because. He is very particular and very picky. So I think that is probably the most enticing thing for me, is knowing that, she sort of comes with the Christopher Nolan seal of approval as an actress. So that is a huge benefit for me. what character she ends up playing in the film, I don't know. Um, time will tell. If she's the main villain, if she's one of many, or if she's not a villain at all. Whatever it ends up being at the end of the day. Um, I don't want to say I'm excited for it because, like I said, I'm not familiar with her work, so I can't sit here and be like, oh man, I'm so excited for this. I think she's going to be great because I don't know. All I have to go on is sort of forthcoming projects, and like I said, she's in Frankenstein and she's in the Odyssey, and those are highly sought after roles, in my opinion, specifically Odyssey, being a Christopher Nolan film, and it's as we get closer and closer to this film, I'll obviously have a better opinion on how I think she'll fit in Star Wars. I think Frankenstein is going to show us how she handles sort of that, I don't want to say sci-fi-y, but, Frankenstein to me is sort of closer to sci-fi than horror, depending on how you do it. This is Guillermo del Toro, so we'll probably lean more horror than sci-fi. So it will be exciting to see that. So I don't know. I again cautiously optimistic about this entire project. Here we are. We're just 2 months out from it being officially announced. We've been talking about it for probably about 5-6 months now, since we started getting grumblings about this in a very serious manner. So I, I'm cautiously optimistic. They're putting in a lot of good pieces. Levy and Gosling, both great talents. And I think they're going to surround themselves with other great talents. So, assuming, to me anyway, like I said, I haven't seen it. So assuming Mia lives up to that, I think we are looking at the potential for something special. And I am definitely excited for it. But we'll just have to wait and see. As I get more familiar with her, we'll see. All right. We also, of course, have rumors, and we hear whispers and things of that nature. And like I said, we have Ryan Gosling attached to this, confirmed, and we now have confirmation of Mia Goth. But rumors abound that they are not the only two big name talents to be in this film. And I'm not 100% on any names. Sean, do you have names? Or
No. Jeff Snyder was on the hot mic not long ago, and basically it was actually Snyder who broke the Mia Goth news first. And basically he said, look, much like with Tony Gilroy convincing a lot of like really good actors coming to Andor, obviously Star Wars has a little bit of a knock to it and what they've done in the last decade. But he expects more big names to appear in the film, and a couple that will surprise people, were his quote. So we'll see what happens. But again, if you can add talent, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, Randy, are you surprised that there will be additional big name talent, or is that just kind of par for the course for you?
I don't know what to say par for the course, but I mean, it makes total sense if you're going to kind of throw all your chips in one basket here and try to just tell like the best story you can possibly tell and bring in the biggest talent. You might as well just go for it, especially if you're given the green light to go for the gusto. Let's make something special. So yeah, I think at this point, I think it's in good hands that we're potentially getting even bigger talent or the same amount of talent. I mean, it's whatever it is, as long as it is a good story. It's all I kind of really care about at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's par for the course when you have the talent like Ryan Gosling at the top of the bill, that you're going to attract additional names, because let's be honest, Ryan Gosling is one of the most bankable male leads in Hollywood. Most of what he does, I don't have specific numbers, but I don't think he's ever been in anything that's really weak in that regard, since he sort of moved up the pecking order as far as male leads go.
He's also a fantastic actor.
Absolutely.
Marketing aside, this guy can act his ass off.
So like you kind of have that triple threat effect going on. He has the look, He has the talent and he has the success on his resume to, back up what otherwise has been sort of a lackluster franchise at the box office in its last few outings, which is not a statement I ever thought we'd say for Star Wars. But to the Disney side, it kind of was. They didn't have the success they wanted with the last of the sequel films, and the spin-offs were great out of the gate, but fell flat on their face as they kept going on. So, I never thought I'd say Star Wars needs a rehab at the box office, but it does. It needs a hit, and it needs one badly. And they are stacking the deck in such a way that if this one flops, that might be it. That's my honest opinion. That we're not gonna. If this film flops with the cast they're putting together and the talent they're putting behind the camera, if this flops, it might be the last time we see Star Wars on the big screen for quite a while.
Creative reset for sure.
Absolutely. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see and hope that it succeeds in the way we hope it will, and time will tell. All right, let's move to our last topic here in the Star Wars segment. We've discussed casting, we've discussed rumors on additional big name talent, but the one thing we haven't quite discussed to this point, we've speculated a lot, we've theorized a lot, but we've never quite had the whispers in the wind that we have now, where we have rumors of the plot. Sean, take it away.
Yeah, again from Jeff Snyder, and actually a couple other places have come out with this too, so it's not just him. Essentially, Ryan Gosling is playing the uncle to one of the other leads, someone that we don't know who's cast. We know it'll be a male character because it's a nephew. And Ryan Gosling's whole role in the movie is to get the nephew to safety because, quote unquote, bad guys are coming after him for some reason. It's important to note that when the Sean Levy rumors first started, before there was any sort of confirmation, Jeff Snyder thought Rey was going to be in this movie. Not as a main character, not as a supporting character. Think maybe slightly bigger role than Luke Skywalker in The Force Awakens. I tend to believe the rumor that's out there right now that the character that Gosling's trying to get to safety, the nephew, is probably Force sensitive. There's probably bad people after them. And who better to get them to at this point in the galaxy than Rey? And assuming that new Jedi Order movie ever happens, and that's a big assumption at this point, wouldn't be a bad lead-in, if you're able to follow up with the new Jedi Order movie a couple years after this one, if we end with that character gets to Rey. I like the sounds of it, but it needs to be executed well.
Randy, what do you think about that?
Honestly, Sean, I actually like your idea. I was thinking that myself. That
just so we're clear, it's not my idea. Not my idea.
I'm just saying it's the idea of the child being force sensitive would be a very good reason for bounty hunters and others, nefarious characters coming after them to try to take the child. And yeah, it would definitely make sense to involve Rey in that respect as well, because this way you can actually gauge interest in the new Jedi Order movie, and you could almost use this as a leaping off point to the child being trained and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think even if it's just rumors at the moment, I'm not mad at it. It's just like you said, it has to be done well. It has to be executed properly. We gotta bump up that production value, as I know you like to have out there, but also just good writing, which we know we're getting. It's just making sure the studio doesn't interfere, and that's been part of the problem with a lot of Star Wars stuff is studio interfering and saying no, we want this. That's why we ended up with The Rise of Skywalker. I'm gonna have to take a wait and see approach until more information comes out. But I like what I'm hearing so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing exactly in any of that makes me go, "Oh, this is groundbreaking." It's all sort of, I don't want to say surface level, but to a degree, it kind of is. You know, um, Hero A tries to save person B from bad guys chasing them is a pretty common theme for this genre of films. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's also very Star Warsy when you think about it. It's very much Episode 4.
Episode
Hero,
7 too, in a way.
yep, yep. So it's a very Star Wars thing to fall back on. Not that that's a bad thing,
I
because
like
it's
your
not.
episode 4 reference though, because it's important to remember that this is the 50th anniversary film.
Mm-hmm. Happy coincidence there. So like it's a premise I'm excited about. Especially if they do go down the route of making the nephew character force sensitive, and making the premise sort of that it allows you to sort of create almost a new sort of Han and Luke style relationship, which is something I'd be excited for. And obviously, this time they would be family versus Han and Luke becoming family by Han marrying Luke's sister. But it's there's a lot of sort of possibilities there that I like. I like the idea of possibly using Rey sort of in that almost Yoda esque role, sort of merging 4 and 5 together. Um, I like the idea. It's going to come down to, again, execution and casting and chemistry is going to be a huge part of this, because if the nephew doesn't have chemistry with Gosling, then that's going to just kill it dead quicker than anything else, which is something which is a trap I don't think Disney will let themselves fall into here.
Curious how old the nephew character is going to be. I think they're going to avoid child actors. I think we're talking about someone who's probably going to be in their mid to late teens.
Yeah, I mean, I think the same. I'm expecting this is going to be one of those cast someone in their 20s to play someone in their teens, to work that way. So, that's what I think anyway for that. So, it's going to be exciting. There's lots of parallels we can draw back to the original trilogy, even certain parts of the sequel trilogy. We've just got to hope that it tells a straight story from A to B to C to D, and hits all of those plot points in an appropriate way, and is a compelling story that gets us from A to B to C to D, and gets us all the way through the story without falling on the issues we've had in Star Wars past. I don't want, as much as I want sort of those parallels to the original trilogy, I don't want this to just end up being sort of it's coming out on the 50th, so let's just throw you a nostalgia piece, where we basically retell 4 again from a different sort of perspective. I don't want that. I do want something original. I want something new. And even if the premise is as simple as that, I think at that point the villain becomes very important. Who are they? Why are they chasing them? Do they know they're force sensitive? Do they think they're force sensitive? Or is this something else altogether? We'll just have to sort of wait and see as we get closer and closer to getting towards this this film. We get closer and closer to shooting. We just have to wait and see, as who plays these different characters. The villain, presumably Mia Goth is likely to be someone in that camp, is what we think. But only time will tell, really. We will just have to wait and see exactly what is forthcoming on that one. Yeah. That's all I've got for this one. So normally we'd move to the next one, but Sean's had to step away for a minute, so I don't believe he's there to change the graphics. So you just have to, bear with us for a few minutes as we wait for him to get back. So in the meantime, I'm just going to hit you with the usual stuff, our plugs and what have you. If you haven't yet, head down below, like, subscribe, thumbs up, all of that fun stuff. Helps us here on the channel and helps you see all of our content here on the channel. And if you haven't already, head to the YouTube page and you can check out the 3 videos we've put up in the last week. Since the last episode, there was a full video on Blumhouse and Saw, a full video on Jason and Crystal Lake, and another video on the treatments for the Halloween TV series that we discussed a bit more earlier tonight. And if you aren't already yet, you can head on over to facebook.com/ Phantom Empire, I believe is still the page. So give that a like if you haven't already. And of course, you can join the Mask of Fear Facebook group, where every day we'll be posting new content. We'll be posting new things there. Trivia Tuesday. Let me pull it up so I can get them all exactly right. We have Meme Monday, Trivia Tuesday, Weird Facts Wednesday, Thoughts Thursday, where I give you a topic, and then you guys try and change my mind. Friday, we have Face Off Friday. Saturday is Synopsis Saturday, where I give you a franchise or film, and you give me a pitch for that film. This week, it's a reboot to a well-known horror franchise. You'll have to see which one on Saturday and give us your best ideas for how you would go about rebooting it over on the Mask of Fear Facebook page. And I'm noticing typos in my post that I'll have to change before they get posted. Otherwise, that would be very confusing. In one post, I call us the Face of Fear, because that's the thing. And of course, Superstar Sunday, if you're a wrestling fan, I give you a wrestler. You tell me your favorite match. Apparently you all hate Drew McIntyre because nobody gave me your favorite Drew McIntyre match on Sunday. So, sad face for me. I gave you one this week that at least some of you should give me a favorite match for, because, he's popular amongst people here on this channel. All right, guys, let's move on to the next segment. We take off Darth Vader's mask and we put on our favorite Lucha Libre mask as we enter the Mask of Fear wrestling segment. This past Saturday was a very busy day for the WWE. In the afternoon, you had the Worlds Collide event with AAA, and then immediately following that, you had a Money in the Bank pay-per-view. So we're going to jump right into that. It's the men's Money in the Bank. That's going to be what we cover tonight, as well as the main event. Everything else, check out Patreon and join at minimum the Squared Circle tier to see that. So we're going to start it off, men's Money in the Bank. As you can see, the man who won that was, of course, Seth Rollins. In the course of the match, you had interferences from the still as yet unnamed stable, featuring Bronson and Braun. That does not get confusing when you're saying it in a segment like that. Braun and Bronson, and of course you had Jacob Fatu finally turning on Solo Sikoa.
I gotta. Sorry, what were you calling these guys again?
Last week I called them Evo Shield.
And I thought they were basically the new version of the Dangerous Alliance. I got a new one for them.
Okay.
BBS.
BBS.
Big, Bold, and Seth. No? Come on.
I don't know. I'm getting pretty close to calling them SOS. Same old shit.
They need to lose the sunglasses. during their gimmick. It's. I know it's such a small thing, but it looks stupid.
It makes a huge difference. Like I said, obviously we had Seth winning the match off of mucho grande interference throughout the entire match from multiple people. Chaos, calamity, craziness. Poor Andrade took a ladder in the testicoles. Do not envy that. That's painful. Never want that to happen to me. But yeah, lots of great stuff. Great match. Good match. How did you feel coming out of the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, Randy? We'll start with you.
Well, we all knew, we pretty much knew Seth was winning that. With a no DQ, it's clear that Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker were going to come down and help. But it was cool to see Jacob Fatu's turn. We knew it was coming. It's kind of hard to forget him screaming, "I hate you." So it was definitely a great moment. We got some great ladder spots like we always did. Every Money in the Bank, there's always someone. My friend and I were trying to figure out who was actually going to take the big hit, and to my surprise, it was Solo. I didn't think it was going to be. I thought it was going to be someone like Penta or, Chad Gable, or Grande Americano, But no, I thought it was pretty well done. It was really exciting. It had good pacing, and even though it was predictable for who was going to win. Overall, it was just a lot of fun, and that's what Money in the Bank ladder matches are supposed to be.
Sean?
It was a fun match. I had no problem with the match. Do I think Seth needed to win that match? No, I don't. But I enjoyed it. Was it the best Money in the Bank match ever? Hell no. But I thought it was fun. They could have done a lot worse than that. And I'm very pro Jacob Fatu. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, how can you not be? I have the Samoan Werewolf is just
a year and a half ago. I never even heard of the guy, so
that saddens me. A year and a half ago, I was watching him do banger after banger after banger. Yeah, Seamus, I'm stealing your gimmick. Great talent, amazing talent, and I've thought so for a great many years. But yeah, it was what it was. I think this was a waste again. In my opinion, this is 2 years in a row they've wasted Money in the Bank on the men's division. Last year they wasted it with Drew winning and cashing it in at the end of the night and getting fucked by Punk in a segment that didn't need to exist.
I won't lie, I thought the exact same thing was going to happen. And given who's in charge of booking, as much as I, think Triple H is a legend in the industry, the booking it's no longer questionable. It's just not good a lot of the time. And all I could think to myself, and I think I even messaged Randy about it, or maybe it was a group chat, I don't know. But I was just like, yeah, Seth's going to cash in on, I don't see it being Cena, so Jay during the tag match, and then there was the spot where Jay got hurt. And it didn't happen, but I thought to myself, oh, Johnny's going to be pissed. They're going to do this 2 years in a row. Seth's going to cash in, and Punk's going to screw him.
I would have been so livid if they'd have done the exact same thing. Like, there's repetition in wrestling that you expect. Nothing is truly original in pro wrestling. I have come to expect that. Watching wrestling as long as I have, there's no... at this point, seeing an angle where I go, oh, I've never seen this before, is a reaction. Like, oh, well, I've never seen this happen before. Gets a genuine reaction. Everything else, I'm like, nah, that happened in the 80s. I saw that in 94. You've seen everything. But seeing it the same exact thing 2 years in a row would be the worst possible booking decision that Triple H could make. And I already find myself questioning Triple H's booking too often. Like in this match, where yet again, you had an opportunity to make a star and you bailed.
I hope you're not going down the LA Knight train.
I am. Because,
oh, God, he sucks. He's fucking
and
awful.
Yet got the best reaction on entrance. For a company that's saying, we listen to the fans and we give the fans what they want. I listened to those reactions. LA outpopped them all.
He's fucking. I. Uh,
If they listen to the fans, where's Karrion Cross's push?
right? Like, I take
He needs to walk out the
Karrion
door as
Cross.
fast as he can. He needs to grab his bags and start running for the door now.
I take a Cross world title push. Obviously, he's nowhere close to that. Over fucking. I'm sorry, I don't like LA Knight at all. He's fucking good guy Miz, and that's it. He does nothing for me. And his entrance music sucks. Get rid of the fucking 1997 garbage entrance music.
You know what? I'm going to disagree on that because it's at least knowable. It starts, you know who it is, unlike half of the roster where it's like, who is this again?
You're right. Get rid of Def Rebel altogether.
I second that motion.
I agree.
The motion passes. Fire Def Rebel. But no, I mean, you know, it just Seth Rollins was the predictable outcome, and I'm tired of the predictable outcome. You know, I want some variety. I want some spice. You know, Seth doesn't need the briefcase. The briefcase serves him no purpose. It just doesn't. You know, he has the faction. He has Paul. He doesn't need the briefcase. You know, it's
No, you're a bad influence. Jade just fucking started playing the LA Knight music over here. Screw you both.
You're just wrong. I'm sorry.
It's awful. I could pump out something better in my sleep.
Don't want to hear that though. Sorry.
I'm with Brandy.
That was a poor choice of words. Yeah, I take that back.
But no, I mean, he didn't need it. Like, no purpose, no part of this story needed that briefcase to be interjected in it. Now, if they'd have switched places and it had been, you know, Braun in the match and Seth helps Braun win the briefcase, then I'm for that.
Agreed. Which
but
should have been
Seth
the booking.
winning the briefcase serves no purpose. Now, if they'd have come out on Raw last night and, you know, done an angle where, you know, they sort of finger poke of doom, you know, Seth giving the briefcase to Braun, then sure. I could,
you know what they could
that
have
would cure
done?
a lot of ills.
You know what they could have done to add more gravitas to your stable name for them? They could have had Braun win the Money in the Bank match, right? Cash in way down the road and become world champion, and then have Seth get pissed and turn on him, and Braun would be the first one. When I say Braun, I mean Breaker, out of the stable, and it really would have been Evolution 2.0 or whatever the hell you're calling it.
Also, I would have absolutely loved Braun to be in this match because the Steiner Math promo for Money in the Bank would have been off the chain. But it just, you know, it served no purpose. You know, getting everyone involved like they did weakens the match integrity as a whole. And just, you know, you become too reliant on the spectacle. Money in the Bank is already spectacle enough. You don't need 10,000 guys running in to ruin the match. It ruins it. Every time someone has ever interfered, I cannot point to interference in a ladder match and say that was good, barring maybe Diesel at WrestleMania 10. You know, and even that wasn't so much interference as it just was being a giant near the ring. But I digress. I do have to give props though. The Shelton Benjamin spot in this ladder match, chef's kiss. I did not think they'd successfully pull off climbing the ladder to the post, to the ladder, with such aplomb. That was chef's kiss. I love that spot. That was an amazing spot that I did not think they could successfully achieve when they set it up.
A brain fart. Can you remind me who was in this match again?
Who was in the match?
Obviously we know Seth, Chad Gable, or whatever.
You had Penta, El Grande Americano, Andrade, Seth, LA Knight, and Solo Sikoa.
Yeah, it might I don't know if LA Knight's ever to be champ. To be frank, but you know, now recapping it, like rethinking about it, like yeah, it was clear Seth was going to win.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I had hoped not, because, like I said, I wanted some degree, not necessarily of originality, but use the match to its full potential. Money in the Bank is the match that can make a star out of nothing. Because let's be honest, you can't have an underdog win the Royal Rumble. You can't really have a shocking Royal Rumble winner, because it just doesn't work. That's a WrestleMania main event spot that you're giving away. You can't just give that away to someone on a whim. But Money in the Bank, you
WrestleMania main
absolutely
event,
can.
huh?
It's still a main event level match, even if it's not in the main event, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, fair. It's a title match at Mania.
Yeah. So, like, it's you can't really give that to a random individual. You can't have an LA Knight or a Solo Sikoa win the Royal Rumble, but you can have them win Money in the Bank, and you can make a star out of that. I mean,
You
we've
telling me
seen it in the
Pat
past.
McAfee's not going to win a Rumble? I'm out.
Exactly. But I mean, I don't think Pat McAfee's going to win a Money in the Bank either. But it just, Money in the Bank can make a star, and it's proven time and time again. Look at how much it elevated Edge in his early singles run. Look at how much it elevated Van Dam. Look at how much it elevated Punk. It took him out of the mid cards and skyrocketed him into the main events at a much faster pace than I would have expected.
I like the
Every
way RVD cashed his in. I know he's not the only one to do that, but like that's probably my favorite cash in, just because of how it, or favorite Money in the Bank winner, just because how the cash in was.
in the era where it was just the opportunist, he didn't do it that way. He did it the right way, for the story he was telling. He wanted to do it in front of his crowd. He wanted him to know it was coming. He wanted time to build it and make it a moment and do everything right. And there's only really been a few times where that's happened. Raw 1000, I think, when Cena cashed in. Was that Raw 1000? I believe he announced it a few weeks beforehand, and they built to that match at Raw 1000, and then he lost the cash in. But like, it's very, very infrequently that you have the announcement, the build, and then the cash in, where the cash in doesn't just sort of happen one night at random. But you had an opportunity to build a star, and again, they didn't. They bailed. Last year it was Jay. You had a chance to pull the trigger on him and give him a chance to, build towards, which I think would have been personally much better. I think if you'd have built to, Jay winning Money in the Bank, building to his cash in, and if he does the announced cash in for, Saturday night's main event or whatever, to build that, then loses that and then wins the Royal Rumble, I think, I don't want to say we're looking better at it, but, I think it works better for the story than what they ended up doing. But, Seth winning Money in the Bank again does nothing. Does nothing for the story. Does nothing for the stable. It just, I feel like they're wasting Money in the Bank again for a second year in a row. All right, let's move from the actual Money in the Bank match and move forth to. Okay, we're going to jump to this match on. Nope, we're going.
Sorry, there's not a separate graphic for that.
Okay, yeah. So we get to the main event now, which was the tag match, of course. It was Cena and Logan against Jay and Cody in Cody's first match since WrestleMania. Cena's third match since Mania. And Jay, and who's had a great many, and Logan, who's only had like two. I digress. That's another conversation for another day. Yeah, it was what we expected it to be. However, the ending is what's notable for this. Cena, in his usual kill wrestling, use the belt, kick him in the balls style finish, had that thwarted by the unexpected return of Ron Killings. No longer our truth, because he's serious now. Shocked? Not shocked? Were you shocked when the mask came off? or had you figured it out by that point? Whichever one you want to go first.
I actually had figured it out just because at first, yeah, I was like, okay, who is this? Just because obviously no one was expecting Ron Killings. But then, of course, like articles of clothing shifted and whatnot. I was like, oh, what if that's our truth? Because I'm like, okay, maybe it is. And then once he removed the mask, it was just like, oh, that's awesome. This is a hell of a moment. Now, that's when, of course, I was like, is this like a one-time thing, or is this actually going to be them going back on their word and saying that, you know, they're going to that they re-signed him, and then find out he's resigned, even though Triple H tried to play it off as, enjoying the show, all part of the show. Like,
Bullshit.
yeah, exactly. And then Killings coming out on social media saying it's not a work. So I'm glad he's back, because and the reception he got is just from that alone was amazing. And then, of course, obviously, the promo he cut last night was amazing.
Yeah. I figured it out the same way. As soon as he did the spear tackle, which I'll call tackle because it wasn't really a spear, it was definitely just more of a tackle. As soon as the shirt wrote up on the back and you saw the skin color, like, oh, that's truth. Because unfortunately, there's literally no other candidate with that build in the company and that skin color. There just isn't. Like, oh, you're going to call up Javon Evans to attack John Cena in the main event of a pay-per-view? No. There's literally no other option, and that's when I figured it out, which sort of took away from it a bit. And then, like you said, I went into the same thing. I had the conversation in one of the Discord channels I'm in about wrestling, not about wrestling, but in a channel on the Discord about wrestling, that this doesn't matter if it's not more. Because we did know that they were letting Truth's contract expire. He wasn't fired. They were letting his contract expire. And as far as we knew, the contract still had 2 weeks left on it from the time of the report. So it could have just been that. I think my exact response was, so long as this isn't just a hype, like a pop for the hype of what's going on, that's great. But if it's just that, then I don't care about it, because it serves no purpose going forward. Now, it seems like it serves a purpose going forward. What that purpose is, I genuinely don't know yet. I don't think I love Ron Killings. I love the truth. His run in early days TNA when he won the NWA title, I thought was amazing. It was to me the peak of his career, because he did get a chance to be serious truth and fight for something. I don't think the crowd is going to respond to that the way they hope.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. So obviously I didn't know until the exact moment Johnny mentioned, but there was a moment earlier on in the broadcast. Now, if you follow any of the wrestling discourse online, WWE wanted no references made to R-Truth while on air during that week.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Cole full on acknowledged the R-Truth chants earlier that night. And he didn't say R-Truth by name, but he absolutely acknowledged the chants. And I was like, oh, okay. And then sure enough, it was him later on.
I'll admit I didn't notice that at the time, but I'm gonna be
And they were
honest, half the
going
time.
nuts, and he was like, as you can hear, the crowd in, I forget where they were, clearly has their voice.
Yep, they were in Los Angeles, which is why no mention of the crowd has been made or will be made. Beyond that. So let's move forward to Monday Night Raw, where something we have long expected to occur was set. We've pretty much known that on the farewell tour, Cena would, of course, come back to the greatest hits. He already had the match with Randy, and this is the next one, which, in my opinion, only really leaves one more left on the greatest hits portion of his tour, and that's AJ Styles. Good luck making that match mean something. But I digress. We now have this match set for 2 weeks from this Saturday, Night of Champions, John Cena versus CM Punk. Now, there's a lot to be said for this match. I think it's great that we're getting to this match. I love that this match is happening. I'm not happy about the venue for this match. Because if
Makes two of us.
if there's one thing I have always given credit to CM Punk for, it is his conviction. And if you go back, and as the internet is prone to do, will always throw your past comments back in your face, CM Punk was one of the most vocal opponents to everything about the Saudi Arabia shows and what they meant. And now here he is cashing that check. Now, I understand the corporate culture of WWE has changed a lot in the last, 5 or 6 years. That, it's probably not as easy to be like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. Out of fear of losing your contract. So I don't know. Maybe somebody sat him down and said, either you do it or
According
that's
to
it.
Fightful, that's not what happened.
Yeah, but, as we know, stories are skewed. We'll never actually know.
Yeah.
So
For the record, though, they're claiming that in his deal, him not working Saudi was in it. It wouldn't be the first time WWE has paid a superstar.
Mhm.
Can't believe I just used that term. A lot of money to do a Saudi match.
Shawn Michaels, I'm looking at you.
Yep.
But no, I mean, we have this match now. It's Saudi. We know that, obviously Punk was one of the most vocal critics of this and everything that it meant. And does this hurt this match for you, that this is the venue in which it's going to happen?
Yeah, they killed the whole fucking thing. It's done. It's over before it even began. Like, now, can we also remember, people, that I'm going to just call it a pay-per-view, has not happened yet? And Punk could get absolutely destroyed by Seth Group next week. Important to remember that they showed up at the end of their little Punk and Cena promo battle.
Mhm.
But this is awful. Like, I got to give you the credit, John. You were the first one on this channel super vocal about Triple H's booking. You have Punk and Cena, and as you mentioned, the AJ Styles thing. In terms of Cena's farewell tour, and I'm sorry, Cody ain't it. Not that Cody isn't it, but Cody and Cena, that it was fucking awful at Mania, and it'll be awful again when it happens. Punk was the last chip that you had to do something special with this guy on the farewell tour. And you're telling me it's only, let's say this is it. Okay, now obviously there could be a rematch because of some screwy finish. But you're telling me that Punk and Cena is only worth a 2-week build? And not to mention, let's be honest, if this match is like night 2 at SummerSlam, then you're sitting there going, there's a little bit legitimate chance Punk could win. Now he might lose the belt 5 minutes later to Seth, but you're going, yeah, Cena's had it that long now, and maybe that's where they begin, because he's not ending as a heel.
No.
Why the fuck are we rushing this? 2-week build, and if this is it, now again, until something plays out, you can't judge it fully. Like a movie plot. You can read the plot of a movie, but until you see the fucking movie or watch a trailer for a movie, until you see the movie, you don't know. But if it is what it appears to be on the surface level, this is awful. Because there's no way Punk's walking out of Saudi as champion. I don't even think Punk's winning and then losing to Seth 5 minutes later in Saudi. And you were going on about predictability, Johnny, and Randy in our private chats before. This is predictable. Cena's going to win by cheating somehow. And it's probably going to be at the hands of Seth's stable. And that's going to be that. Like, such a fucking wasted opportunity. And I'm not saying I'm not going to watch it. I'm going to watch it, of course. But, like, Cena might not be able to go that well in ring. Punk's in-ring WWE has been miles better than the end of his AEW run, that's for sure. But they're both useful on the mic in ways guys dream of. And Triple H is going, yeah, you know what? This is worth 2 weeks. Like, just fucking awful. I'm actually disgusted. Beyond disgusted. I hope that it changes. But, I guess it is what it is. And in terms of the Punk thing, yeah, I think a lot of people liked him for his conviction. But I would also argue almost anybody in the industry has been a hypocrite at one point or another. And
True.
And dare I say, almost anybody in life has been a hypocrite at one point or another. And I can't, I'm sure I can think of a couple of times where, I've been a hypocrite or one of us have been a hypocrite. It happens, unfortunately, whether it's intentional or not. But Punk has been very much all about business for a few years. The dude's a millionaire. He's a millionaire that doesn't waste his money. And if the Fightful report is true, and I think anything Fightful WWE you need to take with a grain of salt nowadays. But if it's true, then yeah, you know what? If I'm in Phil Brooks' shoes, not the character CM Punk, and you guys probably see my exchange with our buddy Kieran in the chat. CM Punk is a character. Now, he's not CM Punk in real life. He's Phil Brooks, married dude, actor, wrestler, dog lover, dog obsessor. If they threw an extra few $1,000,000 at him for one date, and if I was him, yeah, I'm probably taking that too. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but people can go on about Saudi this, Saudi that. If you're I'm not going to use locations by phrase here, especially when one of our co-hosts is located in that specific location. But given what's happening in certain places in the world right now, when it's not a whole lot better in your backyard, going over there might not seem like that big of a deal. And sorry if that pisses people off, but that's how I feel as a human being and as a father of 3 children who's frankly scared shitless about what's happening on planet Earth right now, not just in one location, but many. It doesn't make him a hypocrite. Yeah, absolutely. I'm the biggest CM Punk fan that I know, and yeah, sorry, just he is. And you know what? I'm quite confident he doesn't give a shit if you think he's a hypocrite. Because at the end of the day, he's going to cash a check. And frankly, the only guy he really probably owes an apology to is The Miz.
Yeah. Randy, what do you think?
I'm definitely disappointed in the venue. I will say it's the most personality Cena's shown in a promo since this whole heel turn, which is good. It shows he can still actually do it. But it's like I always felt like this should have been SummerSlam or another. You could even go Survivor Series, just something that would have been not Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia. And it's not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's just I feel like it's a missed opportunity to truly watch these two go back and forth and just give us amazing promo after amazing promo of just them just firing back at each other. This is something they'd always done so well, and you're only going to give us a couple of weeks of it. It makes no sense to me to do that. I feel I agree. It's a huge wasted opportunity from a story standpoint and for just the idea of giving some real excitement to the fans to see these two masters on the mic go at it. It's just disappointing. But maybe, I could cross my fingers and hope it's a decent match. But the problem is Cena's so damn rusty still, regardless of how long he's been back or how many matches he's had. He looks god awful in the ring right now. And
what do you think the best he's looked in the ring, in your opinion, since he's been back? I know what the best he's looked in the ring to me personally, but for you, what was it? Can you think of a time where he looked decent since he's been back?
That's a good question.
It's him and Punk in the Elimination Chamber. Go and watch that sequence again. He hasn't been close to even, like, he just hasn't come close to recapturing anything close to that. Go watch that 4 or
Okay,
5 minutes with them two in the ring,
I can see that. Yeah.
and it's miles better than anything else he's done. Even like that, I don't know what the hell happened in that Orton match. My God.
Yeah, a lot of his matches, he's just really slow, clunky, doesn't have good timing. It's been bad. But you're right. Punk really did. Punk probably had to carry him a lot that match though too, which shows that Punk is at least in excellent ring shape versus what Cena is right now.
And both are one bad injury from being over altogether.
Pretty much.
I think it's hard for me to disagree with any point you guys have made. I think to me the thing with Cena is that I think, and again, this is just me, like, ring reps are great. The more he gets, the better he's going to get. So I think, where the peak we're going to get to is the end. Once we get to those last few matches, I think they're going to be the best because he will have been doing it, doing it, and doing it. And even if it's just once a month, he'll be doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it, and then he'll knock the rest off. I think,
To your point, quickly, not that I'm trying to shit on John Cena, because obviously, whether you like the guy or not, he has a lasting legacy. His impact is one of the greatest of all time, whether you like him or not. In terms of impact, but like Randy brought up, in terms of Punk's ability in ring, yeah, it's been much better in WWE. You know what else Punk does on his free time? Train. Dude has literally a wrestling ring right by his house. Dude shows up at Ace Steel School all the time. Dude's at NXT all the time. Cena, however, is still working this ridiculous schedule where he's filming shit, doing other types of shit, and then right back to wrestling. He just doesn't have time for it. And I know some people might be like, well, it was supposed to be full time. The dude's a businessman, and we just said the same
it
thing
is
about
full
Punk.
time. The schedule is shit.
Yeah, he doesn't have the time to put in more reps in between it. And again, some people might fault him for that, but I think it needs to be considered at least before anyone shits on him completely.
I think, and this is just the me in there, like the part of me that's like, I don't know, I'm feeling worked. And there's part of me that's feeling worked in this Cena run. And I think to a degree, and again, this is just me, purely this is the conspiracy theorist in me, is that I think he's getting more reps than we know he is. I think that Cena is such a good character that the kill wrestling gimmick is what he's doing. He's intentionally shit canning these matches to be bad on purpose. Now, long term, I think that's ridiculously stupid. And if that is what they're doing, kudos to you for achieving that. Whoever came up with this idea is a fucking idiot. Because that's not what this should be about.
Paul Levesque.
I'd never shit on Paul Levesque's booking like I have for the last 2.5 years. What? No, I mean, I think to a degree there is a bit more. I was supposed to say acting. Like, there's more acting in Cena's bad than there's, because like the matches haven't been great, but they haven't been technically sloppy, like you'd expect with someone with ring rust. Like, he's still doing the spots sharply and crisply, and not looking like someone who hasn't done this. He's just looking like someone who can't put together a good match, which we know is not true. That's not something ring rust takes away. That's the one part of pro wrestling that once you obtain that ability, you don't lose it. That's why road agents are guys who were great workers 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Guys who could technically work great matches are great road agents. And then there's, those who can't do teach, the other side of the road agent coin. Kenny Dykstra, I'm looking at you. Great agent, terrible wrestler. But,
Loved his finisher, though.
then there's the flip side of that coin. There's Arn Anderson, who was an amazing wrestler and is an amazing agent. Michael Hayes, same. Dean Malenko, same. I could keep going. But I think part of it is a little degree of sandbag. Now, I think the match with him and Orton is the anomaly in that there was something off that night. I think both guys had a bad night, and that happens. No matter who you are, we can point to everyone having a bad night. Even the Bret Harts and Shawn Michaels of the world had a bad night. I mean, SummerSlam 93, Shawn Michaels and Kurt Hennig. On paper, 5-star match. In reality, maybe 2. And that happens. That's pro wrestling. Sometimes it just happens. I think that's what it... I think Cena and Punk is going to be a great match because I don't think anything less will be accepted by either of them. I think Randy sort of has more of that, almost devil may care attitude where, when things go off the rail, he just kind of shrugs it off and just, there's tomorrow, we'll get him next time. I think that's Randy's attitude. Whereas I think Punk and Cena are both sort of closer to perfectionists in ring that I think you're going to see that great match.
Would you say the result's a given, though? Either one of you? I think it is.
Oh, absolutely, the results are given. How we get there, I don't know. I think there is a very legitimate chance that Saudi dollars provide a Rock appearance. I think that's a shot.
Well, Punk has been running his mouth about The Rock since, I don't know, all year.
And like you said, if there's ever going to be a show where somebody's going to throw a, 7 to 8 figure paycheck at someone to show up for one night, it's a Saudi show. I think it's absolutely probable that they'd throw, 10, 12 million at The Rock to show up at this event. And where else are you going to put them?
Punk Cody versus Rock Cena at SummerSlam?
Oh, God, I hope not. But, that's for other reasons. I mean, at least Rock
I wouldn't
does
put it past them.
I'd love to see it if they could put the match together.
I just don't know. I mean, it's possible. But I don't know. I think, yeah, absolutely. The result, it's a foregone conclusion how this match ends. How it ends, I don't know. I'd say the odds on it being a dusty finish are much higher than it being a clean, quote unquote, finish. Where John hits him with the balls. John hits him in the balls and hits an AA and pins him. I'd say the odds of that are low, but the odds of interference, either, Rock and or Travis Scott, which I hate saying that, but again, Saudi money might make a Travis Scott appearance a thing. I think you're much more likely to have that sort of finish, or Seth and company get involved. It just, yeah, it's a foregone conclusion. John does not lose the belt at this event. There's no chance of that because it makes no sense. It's a 2-week build. You're not going to change the title on a 2-week build. I'm sorry, but you're not. Like, it's never going to happen.
Wait till the next topic.
How well? I mean, we'll come back to that one. But
I was going to say, that's the only thing that makes me go from 0% chance to 0.1% chance.
I'll point out that the next topic, they made that match almost a month ago. So they did, well, yes.
There was really no build during that month, minus 30 seconds here or a minute there.
That's, in modern day product, that's build, buddy. But, it's a waste for a whole host of reasons, not the least of which is it does hurt sort of that, I have had issues with Punk with Phil Brooks. But the one thing I've had to this point always given him credit for was the courage of his convictions. He was a man who stood up for what he believed was right. Whether he was right or wrong, he stood up for his beliefs. And now he is, at the time he accused others of selling their souls for Saudi money. And now he's doing that exact thing. Like that, it sucks because
he fits in with the rest of them.
It's the one thing I could always have stood on and been like, yeah, well, he's great in the ring, and as a human being, I may not agree with him, but he stands by his beliefs to the end. I can't say that anymore, which is unfortunate.
I think the staff at least will be able to go and look at Punk and say, okay, this guy really is a company guy.
I don't know about company guy. He's a him guy, because like you said, this paycheck's going to be 7 figures plus. So
Nah, I think if anyone's paid attention to Punk's run on WWE, he's done way more than he had to do, especially after the injury. He's. I know you're a pro Young Bucks guy, and I think you're fucking nuts for being that. But you know, we could get into a whole episode about that shit. But in a nutshell, the firing from AEW and the footage showed that it was blown way out of proportion,
I always do that.
and that could have been it for him. Like who was it that said he was talking with TNA? One of the TNA guys said that.
It was Scott Demore.
Was it him? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So like in terms of mainstream, Punk could have been done after that, but regardless of what anyone says, he has shown up and been on his best behavior for what, a year and a half now, and close to 2 years. And do I wish he was still as convicted as or a man of his conviction, like you said? Yeah, but I'd also argue that guy's been gone for a long time. This isn't new. If you've been paying attention,
Yeah, I mean, true. There are a
someone
lot
needs
less.
to pay me a lot of money to go to Saudi Arabia. Who's doing it? We'll
They can
host
pay
a
you
show
after
from
they
there.
pay
Line
me.
us up 7 figures each. We'll hop on a plane and go.
I will take that check all day long and cash it happily. I mean, I will say, to that point, there, are whispers from certain people, and again, pound of salt, but there are people who are saying that he hasn't changed as much. Leopard doesn't change his spots; he just learns to camouflage. Maybe. I don't
haven't
see
seen
that.
a lick of proof of that, but
Oh, neither have I. That's why I'm saying pound of salt. But that's the way wrestling works, right? It's starts with the whisper of somebody you never believe, and then eventually it's like, oh, they were actually telling the truth. Usually the source of that is Vince Russo, because who believes a word out of his mouth until finally you realize, oh shit, that actually is what happened. But I digress. And no, he is not the source I'm referring to here. Equally as untrustable sources who I'm referring to. But that's not the topic. So we get 2 weeks to get there. We'll see if we get there. I'm not excited for it, but I'm not excited for it not from the point that I think it's going to be a bad match. I do think it's actually going to be a good match because, like I said, I think Cena's sandbagging. So I think this is going to be a match that brings out the Cena and Cena. I'm not excited for this match because every individual we see on camera is not going to react. Because of the nature of the Saudi shows. Now, the TV will be different because the TV, you'll get the arena. You'll get to see the real fans. And they are electric. They are great. And the fans beyond that first section are great. Are actually really exciting. Like when you see, I point to the, what was it? There was a moment, I think it was the Jimmy Uso turn was in Saudi, I think, a few years ago. When he turned on Roman. And just, I don't like those moments in those arenas where A, the pop goes up so you can't actually hear it, and B, you don't get to see the reaction because it's the Saudi sheiks sitting in the comfortable leather chairs that look ridiculous in a pro wrestling arena. Like they just do. They look ridiculous. And you don't get that emotion because you don't feel it, because you can't hear it as well. Like you can't hear the actual fans going nuts because you can't hear them and you can't see them. So like even in a stadium, like when you see a stadium show, you can still feel it because you can see it. You can see the reaction. You can't always hear it, but you can see it. So you know when the crowd is up and when the crowd is down, which is why half the time I can tell you when a WWE chant is canned nowadays. And to anyone that thinks they're not doing canned chants, you're an idiot and watch the crowd. Because when 0 people in the camera shot are chanting a specific chant that you are hearing so loud on the camera, where's it coming from? And before anyone says canned chants in wrestling, nobody's ever done that. Bullshit. WCW did it for Goldberg for his entire run. So it's a thing, it exists, and it happens. And they're doing it. But that's the nature of live entertainment. You're going to do that. So let's move to the next topic. Monday Night Raw. As we discussed, builds are important. And while this match was announced about a month ago, maybe even longer than that at this point, my point still stands. Why not do it at Money in the Bank? It's not like you didn't have a pay-per-view. So we get to Monday Night Raw. Jey Uso versus Gunther for the title. It's the main event. And Jey passes out and loses the title. Gunther is a 2-time champion. What do you think? Randy, we'll start with you.
I'm not surprised, only because I think what they were trying to do story-wise with Jey is showing just how thin he was spreading himself, just getting beat unnecessarily. And obviously you had those moments with Gunther where he's coming in and talking to him about that stuff. And ultimately what happens is he just got worn down by being champion. And now, do I feel like it was a bit too soon? I would have at least liked to see him go at least to SummerSlam and not lose it on a Monday Night Raw. But obviously, I know you have to do that from time to time just because you want to keep people guessing what you're going to do. I was not expecting Gunther to win. I figured what would happen is Jey retains, but he's so beaten. Seth comes down, cashes in. That's what I kind of thought was going to happen. Obviously, it didn't. So that kind of surprised me a little bit. But it makes sense because why is he going to come down now and try to cash in on Gunther? The match wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't exactly Jay's best work, but it was a decent match for the most part. But beyond that, that was it. That was really it for me, though. It's like I didn't, and I hate to say it that way, but as much as I wanted to feel something in this match, I really didn't, because I guess even though Jay's like over, I just didn't feel him. Didn't feel like he was a great champion. I felt like his popularity and getting over really helped, but ultimately I felt like he was just not going to be. He was not the best person for the job for the champion. I think he was the best person for the job at the time because of his popularity. So I'm fine with Gunther being champion again. It'll be curious to see how long he keeps it for and who they build up to take it off of him.
Sean?
So I was doing work on the YouTube channel during this match. And so like I was paying attention, but like glance down, glance up, glance down, glance up. And so when he passed out, I was kind of like, oh, okay. Because nowadays you just don't see many world title changes on live TV. And I was surprised. But I think I would agree with what Randy said. I don't think Jay did anything for me as champ. Now, I'm not sure how Gunther goes from beating Pat McAfee to being champ again, but more terrible booking by Triple H. Not that I don't like Gunther. I do.
That
but
one's sort of easily explained, though.
All right, explain it.
The rematch clause.
Oh, really?
It's that simple.
Oh, yeah? Where's Roman's rematch?
I'm not arguing that they don't always use it.
Rematch?
I'm saying they have it back pocketed, that they can bring that out whenever it suits them. It suited them this time.
That's bad booking in my eyes. Inconsistent. I don't know. I don't know where Jay's going. I feel like Endgame here is still, Punk and the Bloodline versus, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, BB&S. But I like Gunther, so good for him. But I don't know. In my opinion, the only person that's added anything to that title is the guy that first held it. And I'm not even a big fan of his, but call a spade a spade. Gunther's title reign was not good. Priest's title reign was not good. And Jay's title reign was not good. It's been very underwhelming. It's a mid-card championship posing as a main card championship. Sorry, main event championship.
I think this is one of those sort of internet expectations things, where everyone built up this moment as something they expected to happen that never happened, and it's sort of, you were waiting for that, so when the finish actually occurred, it was kind of like, oh, that's it. Like,
By the way, I'm not saying it was bad. I think it's cool that, we should see more title changes on TV. Not all the time, but once in a while.
There's nothing wrong with it. I think I can understand it from the perspective of ratings are tanking. You need to do something to pop. You do. That's the nature of the business.
I'm sorry, 1 second, because Jade and I noticed this. You said ratings are tanking, right?
Yes.
That's wrestling across the board. AEW is terrible. WWE's gone way down. Sorry. When you log on to Netflix, the first thing you should see is Raw. And it's not. If it's live and they offer almost no live TV over there, you'd think, well, it's live. When you go onto Netflix, Raw would be there. You should not have to search through a subcategory to get to Raw. And I know for a fact I'm not the only person with this problem, and that this has been brought up. That is part of it. Netflix is doing an awful job of presenting their $5 billion product as a, hey, you should really watch this right now. Terrible job.
You're not wrong. I mean, I don't have that problem because, I don't want to say settings, but I watch enough wrestling outside of Raw and pay-per-views, through the backlog, that it is the first thing I see when I go in on Monday nights. And I get push notifications on my phone every Monday, every Tuesday, every Friday, and every pay-per-view that, WWE blank starts in 15 minutes. So I don't know if that's, a settings issue for a lot of people, that they don't have those notifications.
No, I get it on my phone.
Or...
I'm talking going right onto the app.
See, that one I don't understand, because for me it is, and that's because I watch it every week. So like when I go in for Raw, that is the first thing I see. So I don't know, but then I don't watch as much outside of that on Netflix as other people. So that probably plays a factor in it. I have so many different streaming services that I use that, on any given week, it's not a guarantee I'm even going to watch anything on Netflix besides Raw or NXT or SmackDown, or if there's pay-per-view that week. So I'm sure that plays a factor into it for people who watch a lot of other things on Netflix. It changes their algorithm, same as YouTube algorithm. So, I can't speak to that because it's all backdoor coding shit, and that's not something we'll ever be made aware of because it's proprietary. So all we can speak to is our personal experiences and what we see, and there are a lot of people who've experienced the same thing you do and don't get that level of in your face that you would expect for the cost they're paying for that show. Now, pay-per-views notwithstanding, because that's a different animal in different markets, but it just, I watched this match and I expected, because I've been expecting it for weeks. I've been expecting it since they announced it, that this was going to be where they start the Goldberg build, because to me, it made the most sense.
Oh, for the love of God, are you telling me Goldberg's going to beat Gunther?
I hope not. I certainly hope not. But I think he's the guy that gets Goldberg retirement match.
That is the going rumor.
Because they've been building to it.
If Goldberg beats Gunther, Triple H can suck my Canadian cock.
I agree. And not even that. I don't want him near my junk. But
I don't think he's going to win. I think he's going to put Gunther over, and that's just how that's going to work. And
I hope
Goldberg should lose to Pat fucking McAfee at this point.
About that, but I don't disagree that there is zero chance that he should win the title. In fact, it's less than zero. It should be like negative 1,000% chance that he wins the title. And yet he will probably.
If he does, hopefully Seth cashes in immediately.
that would sort of save the moment, if we're being honest. I wouldn't say save the moment because you've ruined Gunther at that point. You've killed him the same as you killed the Fiend. You know, when they did it to him all those years ago, they killed him. He was never the same after that. Let's be real. So like it just that'd be it for Gunther and his run. If I'm being honest, if Triple H puts Goldberg over Gunther, I'm walking into the gorilla position and I'm saying right there, do not even offer me another contract. Don't waste my time. Don't waste your time. I'll see this one out, but I'm done. And I would make that abundantly clear right there. I'd tell everyone. I'd call Meltzer. I'd call Sapp. I'd call fucking JD from New York. I'd call everybody who talks wrestling anywhere and say, I'm out the door as soon as my contract lets me.
Maybe don't call Meltzer. He seems to think WWE's never broadcast anything on YouTube before. Dude's so fucking
As
out
a
of touch.
sole platform, I don't think they have. As a sole platform.
Anything, Johnny. Anything.
I didn't see him say that, so I can't attest to that. But it would not surprise me because I don't imagine Meltzer has ever used YouTube properly or effectively.
What's this?
Dave Meltzer is me getting my parents to watch Raw or SmackDown when it was on Netflix for those few weeks here in Canada in between the Rogers deal ending and the Netflix deal starting. It was not fun. They know how to do it now. They can do it quite well now, but at the time it was hurting cats. But I digress. So that was it. Gunther beats Jay. Jay wins. Jay loses the title after what was creatively a meaningless run. Creatively. Business-wise, it was great. You know, he pushed tickets. He pushed ratings. He was, one of the highest minute-to-minute guys in the ratings every week consistently. And that's not something to be looked down upon. He moved the numbers that mattered. He moved tickets. He moved merchandise. He was a 1 or 2 guy in merchandise sales for the better part of the last year. So, business-wise, he did everything you need to do to be a successful champion. Creative-wise, they treated him like a second-class citizen. He was the second or third guy in his own angles as the world heavyweight champion, and that is disrespectful and disgusting. And I agree with Rikishi in that regard. Everything else Rikishi said is stupid. You're an idiot. Stop talking.
You know what else they should do? Create a real world title and not that fucking Temu looking bullshit.
It does look like something I drew in kindergarten.
I remember a softcore title looking better than that somewhere, some place long ago.
Factually accurate.
Black construction paper.
You are not wrong. All right, guys, that is going to do it for tonight's show. I hope everyone here hopes that you guys had fun and we hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to head down below, click the like, subscribe, set notifications to all, and leave a comment down below to tell us what you think about all of the different topics we have. Any topic, every topic, all topics. If you have a thought, set it down below in the comments. And don't forget, you can join us every Tuesday night at around the same time every week, somewhere between 8:30 and 9:10, depending on how things line up. Somewhere in that window, we will be live every Tuesday night, coming to you with a new episode of The Mask of Fear, and watch the channel through the week for different content outside of that. Sometimes we'll snip segments out of this show, put them up on their own. Other times it'll be completely new, breaking news topics. If Sean gets a juicy, spicy piece of Halloween news, he'll throw out a video. Haven't really had much in the trailer world because there really hasn't been a good trailer in a while that excites us enough.
Yeah, the problem was that a lot of the trailers dropped when we were still trying to set this up.
Yeah, so it's time of the year as well. So we're kind of in that lull in between where everything for like Memorial Day through Independence Day has already dropped all the trailers, so we don't really have anything fresh to talk about until the trailers for the fall start dropping. But I digress. You can catch all of that right here on this channel whenever it drops. So, like I said, click the notification bell and set notifications to all so you never miss a video we drop here on the channel. And if you want to contribute to the channel at another level, you can head to patreon.com/The Mask of Fear, where you can join one of our 5 tiers ranging from $4 to $26. is the range? 27. I was off by $1. From $4 to $27 to join one of our 5 tiers, which ascending tiers, if you join at the highest tier, you get everything that precedes it, and so on and so forth down the ladder. You will have your name featured right here in this if you are one of our Patreon patrons, or if you go for the sponsorship tier, you can be featured here in this and join Backtrack Cinema, Jesse Storytime Spectacular, and Colleague Nation to be one of the official sponsors here of The Mask of Fear. And of course, Facebook, Mask of Fear, Legacy of Halloween. There you go. You can check us out on those 2 Facebook groups. Facebook for the main group page is still Fandom Empire, because they won't let us change that to the Mask of Fear because so you can check us at any of those. Yeah. Anything else you want to plug, Sean?
Again, if you're looking for Halloween content, Matt and I have a Patreon video that should come out next week. Part 3 of the Halloween TV series talk. We obviously, in the video, talked about Laurie not being in it according to early treatments. Tonight, we discussed the unfortunate news, or rumor, however you want to look at it, that Loomis wasn't in the earlier treatments, rather just mentioned. And we will talk a little bit more about who you might see in it according to earlier treatments on that Patreon video that'll come in next week, and that's at the $6 tier. Jade says hi.
Well, there you go. Randy.
You can find me over on X at Giggity Giles, and obviously here weekly, working with Sean to see what we can do in terms of some Patreon content. Haven't come up with anything yet, but we're getting them ideas out there just so we can make sure you guys have plenty to watch and listen to.
We're going to be recording some stuff tomorrow night for them, some wrestling stuff too. Sorry, Randy.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, that's all I got.
And you can catch me here every Tuesday night and occasionally over on twitch.tv/bros before pros. Where I'll stream games that excite me and entice me and just make me want to play. All right, guys. That is going to do it for tonight's show. Sean, send them home happy.
Well, I got nothing. Sorry. Jade's coughing up a storm over here, so I'm a little worried, but we're all sick in the house. So I'll say this. For Randy and Johnny and everybody that's helping out behind the scenes, whether it's the Legacy of Halloween, the Mask of Fear, really appreciate all the work everybody's putting into it. We all are putting work in to areas that you're not even seeing when we're live. And it is appreciated. Check out the Mask of Fear, as Johnny said, on Facebook. That used to be the old Fandom Empire Den. We're keeping that group active. And if you want to talk pop culture, that's the place to go daily. And honestly, thank you to the viewers, because without you, there's no us. And the numbers aren't where they were in the heyday, not even close. But compared to where they've been in the last year, they've been solid. And we really appreciate everyone that takes the time to comment on stuff and like stuff. And it means the world. Like Dustin mentioned in the chat, he's going to join the Patreon tomorrow. That means the world. You're willing to spend your hard-earned money on what we're doing. There's no bigger compliment to what we do, and it's our job to make sure that we deliver the best content that we can, and it's a team effort. So to all you, thank you, and always remember, oppression is the mask of fear.